Earth? It's your boy Icon. We're going over episode 4 of What If. What if Doctor Strange completely lost his goddamn mind? So, in this particular episode, in the Doctor Strange film, it's been a while since I saw the Doctor Strange film, but from what I remember, something happened. I believe he got into the car accident and he hurt his hands. And because he hurt his hands, he could no longer be a doctor, which put him on the path to trying to find a way to heal his hands so he can continue doing what he does. And then it put him on the path of sorcery, and then he became the Doctor Supreme. The girl that ended up liking him, or the girl that he liked, in his search for power or in his desperation or in his anger for losing his hands, I believe he cursed her out and like pushed her away. But in this, the two of them are still together, not really together, but together, and they were on their way to a banquet. And while they were going to the banquet, they got into a car accident, and instead of Doctor Strange losing his hands, the ability to, to feel his hands, the girl died instead. And then, he lost the woman that he loved, which made him go crazy, and it put him on the path to trying to discover sorcery so he can bring her back to life. And that's where that's what everything was centered around, him trying to bring her back to life. And they took us through different situations where he had the time stone with him, and he kept going back in time to try to like save her and to try to like prevent her death. And while I'm watching this, that's when it dawned on me, this entire story, they ripped off the movie Time Machine. Because there's a movie called Time Machine that I saw many years ago. And in this movie, it took place in like the 1800s or whatever. But there was this really smart guy. He was trying, he had discovered time travel, and he was trying to build a time machine based on the 18th century parts that he had at his disposal. He had a girlfriend, and the two of them were madly in love. They ended up going on a date. They were in Central Park, and while they were in Central Park, I believe he proposed to her. And then while he proposed to her, somebody robbed the two of them in Central Park. They shot the girl, and then the girl died. So that put him on the path of going, he emotionally lost his shit, and then he did every single thing in his power to create that time machine. And he focused all his time and his efforts and his energy on building the time machine. He built the time machine. He went back in time, and he tried to save his his girlfriend, and he stopped her from going into Central Park. So then he ended up taking her on a date somewhere at a different part of town. And then, while they were standing on a street corner or whatever, he went to a store, and then he told her, he's like, I'm just going to go to the store to get something. I'll be right back. And then when he went to the store, she got hit by a car. And then there was a montage of him going back in time, trying to save the girl over and over and over again, and she kept dying in different situations and in different ways. Later on in the movie, he ends up traveling to the future to try to find out how he can save her. And then he spoke to someone. I forgot who the person he spoke to. He spoke to someone. It was like the smartest person alive or whatever. He spoke to them, and he asked that person how come he couldn't save his girlfriend. And then the person basically told him that his girlfriend's death that's something that can't be changed. It's something that's meant to happen. He's like, and I believe his exact words were, there will always be death. Like where there's supposed to be death, there will always be death. And he said that it was this girl's destiny for her to die. So no matter what you do to try to save her, she's always going to die a different way, because her dying is supposed to happen, and that's just something that you can't change. And they did the exact same thing here. They did the montage of him trying to save her like 50 million ways, and she kept dying in 50 million ways. So then it put him on the path of complete lunacy, and he decided to search the darkest of the darkest arts to try to figure out a way to bring her back to life. Now the bald chick showed up, and then she was like, yo, she's like, you cannot do it, Steven. She was like, you can't, save her life. She's meant to die. She said it was a fixed point in time. And she's like, it's a fixed point in time that you cannot change, and she's meant to die, and you must accept it. And then he was like, I will accept nothing. And then two of them got into it, and then like he blasted her, and then he ended up going to like the big gold temple to find the books of ancient past to try to come up with the knowledge he needs to stop a fixed point in time. So he comes up with the knowledge, and then when he read the book about a fixed point in time, it told him that in order for him to change a fixed point in time, he has to acquire as much magic as possible. So he ends up searching the cosmos for different types of magical beings and absorbing their power one by one. And while he's absorbing their power, he's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The bald chick ends up going to another Doctor Strange because when when Doctor Strange and the bald chick had their fight, when she told him like don't pursue this path, she blasted him and he thought that she just missed. What she did was she basically, because she said that there are multiple timelines. She said there's a timeline where she said there's a timeline that we're in right now where you tried desperately to save her, but then there's another timeline where you actually gave up and realized that there was nothing you can do to change it. She said I took both of those timelines and merged them together, so now there's two Doctor Stranges in that you know that exist in the same timeline. So she ends up getting the good Doctor Strange. Well, she split him in half. She was like, you know, she said she split him in half. So now there's the good Doctor Strange, and then there's the evil Doctor Strange. So she tells the good Doctor Strange, you have to stop yourself because you're going to destroy the world and everything in it, you know, at the whole risk of trying to bring this girl back to life. So the good Doctor Strange, he confronts the evil Doctor Strange, and there's a strange on strange battle, which was very strange. And while the two of them were battling, evil Doctor Strange, because again, he was absorbing magical beings to try to get himself, you know, the power they needed. There was even a moment, because the Watcher, you know, like he's always watching. The Watcher was actually in the background watching evil Doctor Strange absorb this power. And then there was a moment where the evil Doctor Strange had sensed him, and because up until this point, like the dude's been all over the place looking at everybody and nobody's noticed him. But at this point, Doctor Strange, he had acquired so much power at that point, he actually was like, yo, I think there's somebody up there looking at me. But then when he absorbed himself, when he absorbed another Doctor Strange, and it made him whole again, that gave him the power that he needed 100% to bring the girl back to life. So he ended up killing the good Doctor Strange, he absorbed him, and then he used his power and he brought the girl back to life. But then he looked all crazy at that point. He looked like a monster. His eyes were glowing fire red. So when the girl woke up, she was just like, she got scared and then she tried to run. And then he was just like, oh, it's me. You know, he's like, it's Stephen Strange. But because of what he did, he basically destroyed the fabric of reality, because those two timelines, he destroyed both of those timelines together. So everybody was disappearing, like people were disappearing, people were vanishing. And then he actually looked up at the Watcher and he was like, yo, you need to help me. You need to save me. He said, you need to save us. He was like, you know, you're a god, right? And then he was like, no, I'm not a god. He was like, and neither are you. And he was like, you must, you know, come to terms with your actions. You've doomed us all. And he was like, all I can do is just observe and move on. And then he just looked at him and he dipped. And then Doctor Strange got upset, and then, you know, he apologized to the girl, and she was like, what did you do, Steven? And then he basically destroyed his entire timeline. So that's one timeline that the TVA doesn't have to worry about, because Doctor Strange destroyed that timeline on his own. He killed that timeline and everybody in it, and the girl died anyway, because like he said, the girl was supposed to die. It's a fixed point in time, and destroying the entire universe and everything in it on that particular timeline ends up killing the girl anyway, so he's a damn fool. So that was how the episode ended. No one saved the day. It wasn't a happy ending, and it was over. So thank you for tuning in. It was a cool episode. Like I said, it was weird for me, because when I watched it, while I'm watching it, I'm like, yo, bro, like you dead ass like ripped off the movie Time Machine. But you know, but aside from that, it was still cool. But again, you know, now that his timeline is destroyed, that's it for this chapter, and we're moving on to the next chapter. So like I said, thank you for tuning in. Another Marvel's What If review is coming up next. You know, I said these are cool. It's almost like when you're a kid and you're laying in bed and then like one of your parents decides to tell you a story, you know, like that's kind of like how this feels. You know, they're just telling us like, you know, like these old folk tales, these old fairy tales about these different Marvel characters. So we'll just enjoy the ride and get what we get until we can't get no more. So check me out on social media, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Instagram, and also hit the notification bell when we review the next Marvel's episode of What If, and we'll see what happens. You know, I will say this, to have the episode end without a happy ending, you know, like that's a little different. You know, like we're getting in DC territory with all this darkness. You know, like there was no like haha. I will give them credit for that. Like they didn't Marvel this one up. This one was actually taken very seriously, and I appreciate that. So thank you for tuning in, guys. So until next week's episode, take care, and I'm out this bitch.